This week's Parshas Vayeitzei, the Pasuk says, Vayomer Lavan. Yaakov Avinu asked, he wanted to marry Rachel, and Rachel, and the next, Yaakov asked for Rachel, and the next morning, V'hinei Leah. So Yaakov said, I don't understand what's going on. I asked for Rachel, and it's Leah. Like the Pasuk, Vayomer Lavan. Lavan responded, Lo yayasa Chaim b'mkoimenu lasei satzi'iru lefnei abachira. Over here, the minig is that we're careful or makbid first to marry off the older sister, then the younger sister. Lo yayasa Chaim b'mkoimenu. The shaila is this just another teretz of Lavan for his ramois, or is it actually something, a minig al pi Torah? Lavan Zicha did a ramois over here. They made up Rachel and now it's Leah. The shaila is it just Lavan responding and saying this is yet one of his, like Chazal say that he did over 100 different shtick later in the parsha? Is this another type of ramois? Or it's al pi Torah, it's a minig al pi Torah to be careful to marry off first an older sister before a younger sister. The Gemara in Bava Basra, Daf Kuf Chaf, the Gemara says to explain the psukim by Bnei Tzlafchad. In Parshas Pinchas, the pasuk says, "Ve'ela shmois b'noisav," the daughters of Tzlafchad, the 5 daughters, Machla, Noya, V'chagla, Milka, V'sirtza. And then in Parshas Masei, there's a different order. So Gemara wants to understand what's the order. Either is it like in Parshas Pinchas, Machla, Noya, V'chagla, Milka, V'sirtza, or in Parshas Masei, Machla, Sirtza, V'chagla. What's going on over here? Zakti Gemara, the Torah, the pasuk in Parshas Pinchas lists them out, Kederech Chachmasam, not an age, but the smarter is listed first, not in the age. However, in Parshas Masei, over there, the pasuk is listing out in the age. Yeah, there's a Gemara. Lahalon monan akasav derech gidulasan v'kan, back in Parshas Pinchas derech chachmasam. So the Rashbam explains maybe the opposite. Maybe in Parshas Pinchas it's the age, and in Parshas Masei it's Kederech Chachmasan, who's smarter, who's bigger. So the Rashbam explains, because if you take a look in Parshas Masei, over there the pasuk is speaking about them getting married. It says, "Vatiyena," they got levnei dedeim lanashim. The pasuk's talking about that they got married. So the Rashbam umistaber that they got married in age-wise. The older got married first, and then the next one, and then the next one. And therefore, the pasuk in Parshas Masei that's speaking about them getting married, mistaber, that pasuk is speaking about the order. The list of names is the order of age, because you're supposed to go with the order of age. Ma'ashenkin in Parshas Pinchas, that's just a pasuk by itself, saying the 5 daughters. There the Torah lists them kederech chachmasam. The one that was more chashiv was listed first. And the Gemara just continues, and the Gemara says it's a misayet of ami that be yeshiva. When you're being machabit somebody, it's not an age; it's the one who's more respectful. However, b'mesiba, like the Rashbam explains, b'mishta, not in a covet of, let's say, a bezdin or a shiur or something. Over there, v'hu adin l'nesuin, then you go with age. So we find over here a Gemara, how the Rashbam explains that when you marry off Bnei Tzlafchad, the 5 daughters, like the Rashbam says, u'mistaber, that the oldest got married first, and that's how we know that the pasuk lists out kederech gedulasam and age-wise. So we started off, we saw that Lavan said lo yasakem b'mkoimenu, that the younger one should get married first. So we see a Gemara that it's also matzinu kain al pi Torah. The Torah lists out of Bnei Tzlafchad because that's what was done. Furthermore,
that was a very different story.
Yeah, why was it a different story?
because the father, the suffering was already gone, and Moshe Rabbeinu said they have to marry within the Shevet, so they picked they picked 5 men. Moshe did not see someone. Okay, you marry 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's not that someone approached, the shotgun approached Safka and said, I should have for your 3rd daughter, and he said no.
So you're saying could be over there it happened all at one time, but so then you start asking
That's what I'm saying. Here, Yaakov came and asked for Rachel.
Lamaisa, could be you have a good kash on the Gemara and the Rashbam, but the Metzias is the Rashbam learns that the way how we know that the order was derech gedulasam is because the pasuk is speaking about them getting married, and the lashon Rashbam is Rashbam brings this umestaber the kach noldu, because how do you taka know? Kedechsiv lo yasek vim kaimenu. All right, I'll bring another raya. If you have a bit of a kasha, I mean the Rashbam says it, but if you have a kasha, bring another raya that it's a minig Torah to be careful to marry off the older daughter first. Tosfos and Kedushin. Tosfos and Kedushin brings a shaila came in front of Rabbeinu Tam by somebody that went over to a father that had a few daughters, and he said, I'm giving you money to makadosh your daughter.
This is your daughter?
Your daughter is married to me. So it's very interesting. Which daughter? He has 5 daughters. How do you know which one? So Rabbeinu Tam said like this: Loimi boya, if there was already not a erisin, if there was already kesher sheduchem, a tnoim. So fashteitzach, if there was a tnoim with one of the daughters, so avada, that's the one he's referring to. Not only that, let's say they didn't make a tnoim, but there was a discussion. They discussed the shidduch, like you mentioned earlier. They spoke about a certain daughter, and he went and he said, Bitach Mekadeshes, he's referring to that daughter. It's Dr. Rabbeinu Tam, but even if they didn't speak b'chlal, so maybe you would say, we don't know which one, so Mela Mesafik, it's not chal. Dr. Rabbeinu Tam, because of this concept that you're supposed to marry off your older daughter first, Dr. Rabbeinu Tam, when he said Bitach Mekudeshes, the oldest one is Mekudesh. So you see clearly this concept, this Hazara, is Negei L'Aloch, it's a minig, even our Pi Torah. To Shulchan Aruch and Siman Reish Mem Daled and Yeridea, that brings this Gemara of Babasra, that B'mishta or Nesuin, over there you go with the age. Holchan Achara Zikna Zakta Shach, Dahainu, not to marry off a younger daughter before older daughter. L'halach. Hachi Pirushay, because it just says the lashon is the lashon shall nesuin. The mishta, what type of mishta? So he says if you have 2 children, she'echad gadol machaveru b'chachma le'yaktibu lasis nesuim to the younger one, you're supposed to marry off the older one, even if the younger one is gadol b'chachma. And then says you see that the Chaim Sofer was nizar about this, not to marry off a younger daughter first, and he brings Rabbi Reb Nosson Adler Shkoyach, thank you. He brings Reb Nosson Adler was not careful. V'didei hava of the v'nichshal. That maybe means that they got divorced, but Al Kaponim, the Chaim Sofer says stark, very stark, to be careful. The lashon is kasha alai ma'oid laver al davar mefurish b'Torah. So these 2 shilas over here. Question number 1. Lamaisa, who said this? Lavan said it. Lavan Ho'arami. We talk advise that it's a din al pi Torah, but are we taka learning from Lavan? How are we learning from Lavan? Lavan, not only Lavan said it to be beramoyis, right? He said it to get at it. Yaakov asked for Rachel, Lamaisi gave Leah, so he came up with a shtickle to explain. Dr. Chaim Kanevsky in Taibid de Kroy says like this: Lavan tricked Yaakov Eser Moinim, Chazal say 100 times. Over there, the Torah doesn't bother listing out any of the ramoyis, any of the trickery that Lavan did. However, over here, the Torah spells it out. Zetzachos, this was the only one, the only richtige taina that Taka Lavan had. Everything else was baramoyis. The Torah didn't even bother to say what the ramoyis is. It's rather interesting. The Maril Diskind goes through and explains exactly the 100 shtiklach that Lavan had. He goes through, cheshbons out. But the Torah doesn't list out what the Eser Moinim, what it was. The Torah doesn't list out. Masha Inkein, this one the Torah lists out. That's a chosis taka. These are makor. These are reason. It's taka something to be saimach on. Very good. We'll get to that in a minute. Is it only girls? Is it boys? The Vaila Lamaisa was speaking about girls.
If someone has an older sister,
We're going to get to Lamaisa just right away. But the Vaila, this is just the build-up. We saw that the Torah brings it Lavan's taina. We see that it's negei la'alacha. The shaila is, are we learning from Lavan? The Torah says zetzachos. This was one time that even though Lavan came with a shtick, Lamaisa was right. That's what the Torah mentions it. Another pointer he says also is, Rabbi Chaim Kanevsky, that Zetzachos, from this that Yaakov wasn't mevatel the Kedushin, Yaakov could have told Lavan, listen here, I told you I want Rachel, you gave me Leah, I'm mevatel the Kedushin, done. By this that Yaakov wasn't mevatel the Kedushin, Zetzachos, that it was a richtige taina. So again, the question was, how do we learn from Lavan that only came beramoyis? The Torah says Itaka came beramoyis. But either this that the Torah lists it, so you see that it's a right taina, or al kaponim that Yaakov wasn't mevatel kedusha, so it's a right taina. The question, however, is beseder. So even though Lavan came mekoyach ramoyis, however, it's a right taina. But why didn't Yaakov Avinu think about it? If it's taka something to be choishish, why taka didn't Yaakov l'tchatchila, when he asked, he wanted to marry Rachel? What do you mean? Rachel was the younger one. What'd say?
He knew Leah wasn't for him. Doesn't because I'll say they say the older.
That's what people are saying. People are saying. Lamaisa, if it's something to be nizer about, and we see it's taka something to be nizer about. Al pi Torah, b'noi slavcha, taisus rabbeinu tam. It's lamaisa la'aloch we paskin like that. So Yaakov wasn't zar about it. So Chaim asked the kasha. What'd say?
we're saying the whole time is that we said, okay, it's a good cheshbon. Don't we also say that part of the cheshbon why he wasn't about to the kedushin, he wasn't about to the second set of 7 years, is because it would have been a bushatoya.
So it's very interesting. Chazal also say, he asked, it was at Santa Masamata between Yaakov and Leah, and he said, like, what's going on? This is, you're like your father. But Lamaisa is like this. Lamaisa, Rachel gave over the Simonim not to embarrass Leah that night. But
they also say that, why didn't Yaakov just say, okay, 7 more years for Rachel, second half years married to Rachel? He says, no, it's about another this, that, you tricked me. He could have made a whole cheshbon also, the same Ramos. The reason he didn't was not to embarrass Leah, that I didn't really work for you, I got you some. You're just
Good. I hear we saying on the second teretz. Al Kapanim now asking a different kasha. This is zichah clearly a kasha. Why didn't Yaakov Avinu, why wasn't he zar to begin with? He asked to marry Rachel. Rachel was the younger one. So there's a few terutzim. The Chaim answers, that this whole concept of not marrying the younger one is something that's totally in the father. And therefore, by Yaakov asking Lavan, I want to marry Rachel, obviously he was asking Lavan, are you okay to marry off your younger daughter first? You need a haskama from the father, and that's what Yaakov asked. So Avada Lavan B'Rama Usai came back afterwards and said, La Yasa came b'Mechaymenu. Shkoyach. Yaakov relied by asking him before the 7 years, I want to marry your younger daughter, and Yaakov assumed by asking to marry the younger daughter, he's asking Lavan, are you okay to marry off your younger daughter? So Mela is like this. Avada, it's Parshas, the Zehiris was even Yaakov was Zar. However, the whole Zehiris is just Lagabe the father. And Mela Yaakov asked the father, Lavan, is it okay? I want to marry Rachel, and is it okay? So Avada, Bo Lavan b'Mirma, and Lavan said, La Yasan Kei b'Kaimenu.
If you don't Chazal say Bill and Zilpah were also sisters,
Yeah.
right? So then when Rachel gave Bilhah to Yaakov, I was like make an assumption that Zilpah was older than Bilhah, but she was to the Edita, the Leah, and you should Vayeitzei have to give her shus from the father.
Could be. I don't know what happened over there. The Berach Moshe, the Satmar Rebbe, brings from his uncle, the Divrei Yoel, the same idea, but a little bit different. What we said to him, the Chaim HaKadosh, is that you have to get permission from the father. He says that the reason why not to do it is not to be mitzar, the older one. But if you ask the older one and the older one's maskim, then you can marry the younger one. V'ilakach, by Yaakov Avinu asking Lavan, I want to marry Rachel, Yaakov was telling him, find out from your older daughter if it's okay for me to marry the younger daughter. The same way like the Chaim says, the assumption that Yaakov Avinu was asking Lavan permission, now he was asking Lavan to find out from his older daughter if it's okay to marry the younger daughter. So then what was Lavan's taina back? Lavan said, well, Yasa came in Kaibena. What was he answering back? Yaakov said, find out. So he says, La Yasa came in Chaimenu, meaning to say is that even, it's such a place of Ramoyis, that even if the older daughter is going to say, yes, I'm asking, even if she says, yes, I'm asking, they don't really mean it, and Memela there's no askama. That's what Lavan was answering back. But Akapanim, Yaakov was asking Lavan to find out if it's okay to marry the younger daughter first. There's another teretz to explain Yaakov's cheshbon of marrying the younger sister. The Marsham, in his Sefer Tchelis Martcha, explains, based off a Rashi, he brings the chidah that brings from one of the Rishonim, Rabbeinu Ephraim, that Rachel and Leah were twins. And just like Rashi brings Lagabe Esav and Yaakov, twins, so Rashi brings from Chazal with a mashal, even though Taka Esav was born first, but Yetzirasai, the creation of the twins, Yaakov was first. And Mele Rashi says, B'daima, like a pipe. If you put two rocks into a pipe, you first put in the first rock, then the second one, but which one is going to come out first, back out of the pipe? The second one. So it's true Taka Yaakov was Noitzer first, so because Esav came later, Memele he went out first. This is Dr. Rashi from Chazal. So Memele is like this. Leah Taka came out first. But Yaakov Lishitasai, as Yaakov was the Bechor, he says, just like Kibi was, the Pshat was, it's because he was Notzar first, so Rachel also, Taka Leah came out first, but Rachel was Notzar first, so really Rachel was the older one, and then Lavan came back. No. Leah Yasa came, because Leah Lamaisa came out first. But Akapanim, Yaakov's cheshbon was that Rachel's really older, because she was, the Yitzira was first. Al Kapanim, what we have so far is that these, I would say, an Indian, it's not, if somebody goes and is Makadash, the younger daughter, it's Chal, it's not Ma'akav, the Kiddushin, but it's something to be careful about, not to marry off a younger daughter before an older daughter. However, there are two Ifanim of Heter. maybe more, but two that I found, and that was a discussion a little bit before. Number one, Dr. Marsham, B'shas Hatchak. He was asked the question, B'shas Hatchak, for an example, if the older one is getting older, he says in age, obviously it's Gefiya Matzev, it depends when they start Shidduchim. Rabbi Chaim Kanevsky says the same thing also, Le'isat Tzoyrach, you could skip and go to the younger one. Chaim Kanevsky is speaking about a case when there's, let's say, 3 daughters in Shidduchim. I think he says over there. Also the ages, but if there's a tzorech, then you could take a go to the younger one before the older one. That's one oifen heter. And then there's another heter, which is, we were just talking about now when it's 2 sisters, an older and a younger sister. I think you mentioned it before. What's about if it's a brother and a sister, 2 brothers? So it's very interesting. It's common that a younger sister goes before an older brother. That's common in many places. Again, a younger sister goes before an older brother. But over here, the Marsham says that if you have, we're talking about 2 sisters, that the younger sister, you shouldn't skip to go to the younger sister. Dr. Marsham, but if you have 2 brothers, over there you could skip the older brother. And the reason for that is because he's a mitzvah, peri v'rivya. And Rav Moshe has the same tshuva as well. Also, Rav Moshe is actually speaking the same thing, but he's not talking about 2 brothers. I think he speaks of 2 brothers also. 2 brothers and also a brother and a sister, which means you could skip the older sister to go to the younger brother, Dr. Rav Moshe, because the younger brother is mitzvah, the peri v'rivya. The girls are not mitzvah. No, the Shabbos, good, but it's not. It's an Inyan. It's not from the Taryag mitzvah. So Mamela, good. So you have to be nizer. Dr. Moshe, I'm just going to say, because if you look inside, somebody wrote to Rav Moshe that asking. He says, Lamaisa, we're going to skip the older sister. She's going to be betzar. She's going to be betzar if you skip her. So Rav Moshe writes. He says, where do you find that you shouldn't be makayim a mitzvah? Because by you being makayim a mitzvah, you're being mitzvah somebody. Of course, a person can't do a mitzvah and shake lulav and bang someone else in the head. But if he needs to be makayim the mitzvah, if somebody's mitzvah because someone else couldn't get dalad minim and you got dalad minim, so should you not take dalad minim because when you take dalad minim, yen is going to be mitzvah. I mean, maybe you could take a pitzina, but if you take a yen is going to be mitzvah, you have to do the mitzvah. The Mele Dr. Moshe, what does it mean yen is going to be mitzvah? The older sister is going to be mitzvah. Lamaisa, you have to do the mitzvah. And he goes through and says about boishes. He says you have to teach them not to have kinna. What is it? What are boishes? I mean, you have to do what the right thing is to do. It's peri v'rivya. The Chazon Ish in a letter also discusses that somebody writes and he says that there's nothing what to be zor about when it comes to a younger brother. I think over there he's talking about 2 brothers, but when a younger brother, there's the mitzvah peri v'rivya. So Tosfos that we saw, Tosfos and Kedushin, that says that Rabbeinu Tam says Bestama, that it's the oldest because that's sisters. Savad, you go with the older sister. What did you say? The question, however, is that this Rav Moshe addresses the shach that brings this lahalacha to be careful not to skip an older sister. The shach speaks also about 2 brothers. This that it says nesun, you go with the older one, says the shach im achem oy achyois. So the shach l'chayr says achem also, that if you have 2 brothers, you have to do the older one first. L'chayr, we just said now that it's only this whole discussion, this whole morning shiur is only legabe 2 sisters, not legabe a brother. A brother always you could go with the younger brother because he has a mitzvah peri v'rivya. So for that, Rav Moshe says. She says this that it's talking about 2 brothers is not talking about that getting engaged. Avada, married, or getting engaged, Avada, you could skip. You could go to the young one because it's a mitzvah, peri v'rivya. Dr. Moshe, it's talking about that they're both engaged already. And then the shaila is which wedding to make first, the older or the younger. For that, you go with the age. But avada, if you have.
One of them got engaged 4 months ago, and one of them's getting engaged now. You're going to tell me that the one got
Good, so maybe that's impossible. But if one got engaged gets engaged now, and one gets engaged in a month, so then the young, even if it's the older one got engaged later, make the older one first. I have a family member, two of his daughters got engaged. The younger one got engaged first, and the older one got engaged. They did the older one first. It was a very quick, I think it was 5-week engagement. But I'll point of it, that even by brothers, even by achim, even by brothers, the younger one could go first. But if they're both engaged, the question is now who to marry or first. You go with the older one. So just to be masakim very clearly, this that Lavan said in this week's parsha, Lo Yasachem Bim Kaimenu Dahainu, that you're supposed to marry off the older one. That's what we talk about paskin lahalacha. We see these yotzim in aklal leisat tzorich avada. Every case is different and should clearly be discussed with Das Torah what to do. But there is a tzad, clear tzad, heter le'isat tzorich, to marry you off a younger daughter before an older daughter. And then we also saw that this whole discussion is a discussion like about two sisters. When it comes to a younger brother, whether if the older is a sister or a brother, but the younger brother, over there it's not applicable because he has the mitzvah, say the raisa piri v'rivya. And Mamela, that doesn't, the inyan, the mila, the importance of marrying off the older one doesn't override the mitzvah, say the raisa piri v'rivya. Have a wonderful Shabbos.
Yeah.